a question, pop it into chat, and Tammy will take a note of it and make sure it's asked at the end. Or just jot it down on a piece of paper so you don't forget. I hope you can all understand my accent. Thumbs up if you can understand me. Wonderful, lots of thumbs up. What do you do when your career choice is being phased out? Anybody been in that situation where you see the writing on the wall, where more and more of your bookings are getting cancelled due to a lack of need? This was me back at the end of 2014, 2015. I was working as an IT trainer in the Microsoft space, but all of the demand for training was in professional development and soft skills, and I wasn't. I was okay being a computer trainer because I could sit at the front of the room, hiding behind my computer. But ask me to stand up and talk to a group of people, I was totally terrified. So terrified, in fact, that although I saw back in 2014 that I had to make a career change, it took me until 2017 to walk in the door of a Toastmasters club. Oh, I researched Toastmasters, I Googled it, I read about it. And once I even got as far as the car park before turning around and heading home. But in 2016, 2017, my cancellation rate had hit 80%. There was just no demand for my skill set. So, taking my daughter along with me for moral support, I walked into my first Toastmasters meeting. Do you remember your first Toastmasters meeting? How did you feel walking in that door? Well, I was really terrified. I timed it so I'd get there 1 minute after the start time. You see, I wasn't actually expecting things to start on time. Things never start on time in my world. And I didn't want to stand around making small talk at the start. So I thought if I get there 1 minute after start time, I'd probably be okay. To my shock, they had actually started on time. So we sort of snuck into the back row and sat down. We watched the meeting unfold. There were a couple of speeches, and then something I later learned was called table topics. In this session, the table topics master asked a member, let's call him Fred, to tell the club what was wonderful about another member. Let's call her Sally. And there were a number of speakers where they would be asked to tell the club what was wonderful about another club member. At the end of the session, we were told that somebody was going to provide an evaluation of the speakers. Let's call him Peter. Peter got up and instead of evaluating Fred like he was supposed to, for some unknown reason, he evaluated Sally, who hadn't actually spoken. However, when it was pointed out to Peter that he had made a mistake, it was done with respect and in such a way that it sold the club to me. You see, my biggest fear was being embarrassed. And if somebody could make a rather large mistake like that and be treated with respect, I knew that Toastmasters was for me. I went to Toastmasters to develop my professional development and soft skills and to get over the fear of being terrified. I joined because members were treated with respect. And that has been a cornerstone of my Toastmasters journey. When I joined, we still had the Competent Communicator manual Who joined when you had the Competent Communicator Manual, the CC manual? A couple of you. And the club was quite small, so I had lots of opportunities to speak. I loved writing speeches, although I found it really hard to come up with topics. I really wish that someone would give me a list of topics to talk about. But I would be put on the agenda as a speaker. I would write a speech, practice it, hone it, get it perfect, and then not turn up. You see, I was still terrified of speaking. And pretty much took 8 months before I turned up when I was on the agenda as a speaker, Toastmaster, or Table Topics Master. I must have driven the VPE mad. It also took me about 6 months to get past 20 seconds in a table topics answer. Doesn't everybody think in bullet points? But other than speaking, I was happy to get involved. I became the VP of Public Relations in June of 2017. And I excitedly went to club officer training because I told it was a great place to learn about your role and a fantastic place to network. I'm actually an introvert, so I'm not quite sure why I was excited to go along. However, went along, sat down in a chair, and a lady next to me introduced herself to me. And the conversation went like this. Hello. Hi. Who are you and what club are you from? I'm Julie from Southern River. What's your role? I'm VPPR. How long have you been a Toastmaster? Oh, since February? You haven't been a Toastmaster long enough to be a club officer. I didn't really talk to anybody after that at club officer training. In fact, I sort of thought club officer training was just a bit weird and disorganized, and I didn't really understand while I was there. However, at club officer training, they mentioned something called pathways and told us that it was an exciting new educational program and that a pathways guide would be along to tell us about it. In September, somebody turned up who said, I'm your pathways guide. They put up a few slides, told us a bit about pathways, and when they left, I turned to a fellow club member and I said, it sounds expensive and annoying. And that was my first attitude about pathways. Pathways rolled out in our district in December 2017. I wasn't really keen on it, didn't really understand it. However, I'd started to turn up for speeches, I'd started to grow in confidence, and I knew that my Toastmasters journey wasn't over. As an IT trainer, I'd been involved in a lot of software rollouts, and I tended to see myself as somebody who accepted change. So I thought, if I wanted to continue my Toastmasters journey, I really need to get on board with Pathways. So I became the Vice President of Education to come to terms with Pathways and to help the club adopt it. I decided that we were going to adopt the attitude that it's going to work. If there were problems, we were going to find solutions, and we were going to stop being negative and get on with it. I also knew that even though I was Vice President of Education, this had to come from the President. Now, my President had been a Toastmaster for about 12 years at the time, and he was pretty reluctant to get on board with Pathways. I had a really good chat to him about the need for him to lead by example. Thankfully, he took that on board and started to work on pathways along with me, and then that led the club to adopt it. Within 6 months, our whole club was on pathways. It wasn't perfect, but every time we came to a problem, we found a solution. In those days, you couldn't see the different levels. So you didn't know what was in level 2 or 3 until you got there, which made it really hard to plan. So I sat down and I created sheets, progress sheets or goal sheets for every level, for every path, so that people could look at this and make plans as to what they're going to do and when they're going to do it. Those resources are still in use around the world today. And surprisingly, one of my other Toastmasters colleagues found them on Toastmasters International website. Not sure how they got there. The other problem we recognised was that onboarding people was challenging. So I wrote a new member manual that we give when we do an induction, and it helps people through level 1. And again, it's in use around the world and has been proven invaluable. All of these resources we developed as we went along to help people get involved with pathways. My pathways journey started with the innovative planning path. I'm not sure if you know, but in the early days of pathways, there was an actual bug in the assessment. And more people got put on innovative planning than any other path. So if innovative planning was recommended as your first path, that's probably why. If I'd known what was in the innovative planning path when I started it, I wouldn't have chosen it. But looking back, it was actually the best thing that could have ever happened to me. You see, prior to the innovative planning path, I'd never led a team at all. Never held any sort of leadership role. I'm an IT trainer. I work with teams, but I never, ever, ever had to lead one. So here am I, innovative planning path, level 4, manage projects successfully, where you need to lead a team. I made a few mistakes. The biggest mistake I made was I didn't actually realize that my team needed to understand what the vision was for the project. I knew it, and I knew what we needed to do to get there, but I didn't do very well at communicating that to my team. And that was the feedback I got at the end of the project. But the great thing with Toastmasters is you get to do it again. And level 5, innovative planning, high performance leadership, gave me the opportunity to take on board the feedback from level 4 and give it another go. By this stage, I'd started to see and understand some of the strengths of pathways. I absolutely love what used to be Project 2 in level 1. It's now Project 4. This is where you have the opportunity to do a speech, receive feedback, and incorporate that feedback in another speech. Right through the Competent Communicator Manual, I'd receive feedback. In fact, my feedback for the first 18 months was the same feedback every speech. Not enough vocal variety. I could pretty much evaluate my own speeches. But I never felt challenged to incorporate the feedback. I mean, I'd get the feedback, I'd think about the feedback, and then I'd move on to deal with whatever the next thing in the manual was. Being challenged and evaluated on how you incorporate the feedback, I think, is invaluable. I've done that project in all 11 paths and loved it every time. because what it's done is given me the opportunity to try some really unusual ways of presenting speeches. Find out what worked, find out what doesn't work, and give it another go. The second strength in pathways for me particularly was the fact that things like body language, vocal variety were in level 3. I found when I was doing a competent communicator manual that I was still focusing on actually turning up for speeches and getting up and standing in front of people. And you were asking me to think about vocal variety and body language. It was too early for me. Having it in level 3 really worked for me. I know they've brought it back to level 1 now, so your experience may differ. But I also appreciated the focus on leadership. Doing the innovative planning path showed me that I could lead and gave me the skills to lead. And that has taken me from president to area director to division director and now program quality director. I don't believe that this is a path I would ever have gone down if it wasn't for innovative planning, if it wasn't for pathways. Maybe it would have come later, but it was not in my nature to seek to lead. Also along the journey, as you heard in the introduction, I've done 2 DTMs. I've coordinated a speechcraft, I've been a club coach, and I've started a club. Every time I've taken an opportunity, I've grown in confidence and skills. And that's led to more opportunities and more growth in confidence and skills. There's been many challenges in these opportunities. Challenges that see me shaking in fear half the time. The first time I was asked to present at club officer training, I was given a 1-sentence brief on what they wanted me to present on and a 25-minute time limit. I stood out the front of that building prior to having to go in, quaking with fear, feeling physically ill, pacing backwards and forwards, and wondering if I'd actually stand upright at the front of the room. I did. The first workshop I was involved in, I was told I had to run a group activity. Never run a group activity in my life. My first club visit as an area director, it was actually the first time I'd visited another club. And I suddenly discovered that people do things differently. And I learned that just because people do things differently doesn't mean they're wrong. However, every time I accepted one of these challenges, the support and encouragement from my fellow Toastmasters made it possible and kept it going. Often, many times, as I stood at the front of the room or paced nervously outside, I'd be saying to myself, it's okay. They're Toastmasters. They'll be nice. I was doing that earlier today too. But every time I've stepped up, I've grown in confidence. And that confidence has taken me more than just within Toastmasters. That confidence has helped me become a TEDx coach. My 2 speakers spoke today at TEDx. I wouldn't have had the confidence to do that without Toastmasters. Every time I've stepped up, even if I've messed up, my fellow Toastmasters have been there to help and support me. But how does this tie into the reason I actually joined Toastmasters back in 2017? Remember how IT training was on the wane and I needed to move into professional development and soft skills? At the time, I thought I'd end up teaching things like presentation skills, communication skills, conflict resolution, time management, that sort of thing. My first full professional development course that I ran was a 2-day course called Leadership for Middle Managers. Yep, a leadership course. I would not have been able to do that without Toastmasters and innovative planning, of course. This was a really challenging course. I was first offered the opportunity to do it in May this year. And I was told that there were 7 in-person participants and 1 online person. However, unfortunately, my father passed away. And because we didn't know the date of the funeral, I had to pull out of training this course. They gave the course to an experienced professional development trainer who asked the organising company to cancel the online person, because I believe the course was too difficult to run in a hybrid environment. I wasn't able to attend the course as a participant, and I saw how she ran it. In September this year, I was asked if I could run the course. So I agreed with a bit of trepidation. And then after I agreed, I was told that there were 2 online participants and 3 in person. And they wouldn't cancel the online ones for me. I thought the course went well. On the first day, the room was set up so that the online participants could only see the in-course participants and they couldn't see me. I think they must have felt they're listening to a podcast all day. I got that changed the second day. At multiple times during the 2 days, the training organisation came to me and said, "How do you think it's going?" And my reply was always the same: "I think it's okay, but let's see the evaluation forms." I found that I could teach the course, and I found that my experience leading volunteers in Toastmasters gave me an awful lot of material to work with. Finally, second day, got through the course, participants all went home, and I went into the training coordinator's office with the senior professional development trainer, and they pulled up the course evaluations. The first evaluation we read was from one of the online participants. His comment was, "Julie is awesome." The other evaluation forms didn't really matter after that point. They were actually similar. Julie is awesome. Here is a course that I only was able to teach through my experience with Toastmasters and the skills and the knowledge I'd learned through innovative planning and the other paths where I've been challenged to step up and lead. That is what Pathways and Toastmasters did for me. Julie's awesome. Yes. I sort of want that engraved on a poster. But believe it or not, that's not all that Pathways has done for me. It's done more than hone my leadership skills. If it wasn't for Pathways, I wouldn't have had the confidence or skills to ask for and get a 30% pay rise. You see, I work as a contractor to 2 major training companies, and I've worked with each for a couple of years, and I present courses that most other people refuse to do due to the level of complexity and the rate of pay. The rate of pay for the complex courses is exactly the same as the rate of pay for the easy courses. So most trainers sensibly only train the easy courses. When I joined these companies, they asked how much do I want to be paid? And I told them, and they both came back to me with a lower rate and take it or leave it attitude. They used nicer words than that, but that's what they meant. I needed the work, so I took it. One of the most complex courses I train due to COVID is now taught hybrid. And I was asked by email how many people I thought I could effectively train in this course in a hybrid format. And I said 8. It's a really complex course. The next course had 12 participants on it. So I rang the scheduler and she said, okay, we'll cap it at 8. The following course, there were 10. So I rang her again, same discussion, same outcome, because we were back up to 12. At this time, I was working on the dynamic leadership path. And the next project that I was working on was negotiate the best outcome. Fantastic path, fantastic project. There's information about preparation, about what you need to say, the language you need to use, knowing when to walk away, all of these fantastic things. And there's a workshop to plan, a worksheet to plan your negotiation. And the speech's purpose statement says, the purpose of this speech is for the member to share some aspect of a past or future negotiation in his or her life. And I thought, I've never really done that. I've never really negotiated for anything. I just tend to accept things and live with it. However, let's try this on getting the course size set at 8. So I worked through the worksheet, had all my ideas and reasons and thoughts lined up, and I rang the scheduler and said, I'd like to discuss the course size for this course. And she responded with, sorry, I was supposed to call you and tell you. Management has decided that the course is to be set at 10 people and there's no chance of it varying. That was a very short negotiation. Next course had 12 people on it. And I thought, this is not working. Let's try for a pay rise. It took me 2 weeks to find out who I really needed to talk to about this pay rise. During that time, I went back through the project, back through the worksheet, and really worked out how I was going to approach this negotiation. I was prepared for them to say no, and I had a couple of ideas as how to respond to that. When I spoke to Jackie, the National Course Coordinator, and I started out the negotiation talking about class size. I talked about how I really felt the class was suited for 8 people and the difficulties of training more than that. However, I conceded that management decided on 10, and I was happy with that. But I really felt the rate that I was being paid did not reflect the work that this course entailed. She responded and asked me how much I wanted. So I put my rate up by 30%. She came back and said, well, she was thinking of slightly lower than that. But again, I restated why I thought it was worth that, and she then agreed. When she agreed to the rate, she turned around and said to me, can we change the course size to 12? I said no. And again, restated the reasons why. She agreed and told me she should send me a new contract. The contract came out 2 weeks later, and the contract was backdated to July the 1st. So I thought, why not? Let's give this a go. So I rang her up and said, would you pay me the difference for the courses I've run since July the 1st? About $5,000 worth. Unfortunately, she said no. But hey, it was worth a try. Meanwhile, with the other company that I was working for, I was still on the old rate. And I was preparing one of the courses. Again, it's a course that I'm the only trainer for because it's complex and difficult and most people won't train it. And the senior trainer came into the room and told me that he was working on next year's contracts. And I thought, why not? Go for it. So I said to him, more money, please. He laughed and walked out the room. 15 minutes later, he walked back in and said, okay, how much and why? Now, because I'd already planned out the negotiation for the previous company, I had it all still fresh in my mind. And thanks to table topics, I could adapt it on the fly. And I gave him the reasons as to why I thought they needed to pay me more. The fact that I teach complex courses, the fact that I get fantastic evaluations, Julie is awesome, and the fact that I get lots of repeat business for the company because clients come back and ask for me specifically to run courses for them. And I told him that I believed I deserved around a 25% pay rise. He went away, came back about an hour later with a staggered scale of between 20 and 35% pay rise, depending on the course and class size. This will take effect from January the 1st. I would not have had the confidence to do this without Toastmasters. And I probably wouldn't have done it without that Negotiate the Best Outcome project. And the challenge in that project to apply it to a real world situation. And that's the other thing I really like about Pathways. It's challenged to fit it into the real world situations. If you don't have real world situations, that's fine. You can use imaginary scenarios, but it's designed for the real world. And in this case, 35% pay rise is a pretty good outcome. I have finished 5 paths. I'm working on the other 6. And in fact, I've got 25 speeches left before I finished all 11 paths. I can honestly say that I have been challenged by every project. Every path in a different way has provided me with additional challenges. Some of the projects I've had to put on the back burner for 6 months because I've not been able to figure out how I could effectively do them. But every time I've stepped up to the challenge, I've learned and grown and developed more skills. Specifically, visionary communication challenged me to really be able to separate the vision from the plan. I'm a planner. And I really move very, very fast from where we need to get to how to get there. Visionary communication has made me actually slow down a bit and spend time thinking about that vision and communicating the vision. Remember that first team I led? Strategic relationships challenged me to think about how I think about others and the stereotypes that I use. Engaging humor is a path I'm still working on because that's trying to challenge me not only to put humor into my speeches, but to tell stories. I'm a facts and figures type person. Remember those 20 seconds table topics? Putting stories and humor into a speech is a massive challenge for me. There's other challenges along the way, the conflict resolution, the presenting proposals. And what I found with some of them is that I've actually had to do more research to actually figure out how to do it or how to apply it. So I'm going to ask you, what is Toastmasters developing in you? And this is something you can pop into chat for me, guys. I noticed that some of you have been putting chat all the way through and it's great. But I want you to take a minute now to just to think about your journey with Toastmasters. What has it developed in you? Confidence, presentation skills, leadership? Pop it into chat. Getting over fear of speaking? Thanks, Andy. Give and receive effective feedback? That's really true. That's very priceless. Confidence, fellowship, presenting awards. Some really interesting one there, guys. I actually want to talk about the feedback one because that is such an important point. About a year and a half into Toastmasters, I was working on site for a client as a contractor. And the project manager on the team was a youngish lady, and her boss was a bit of a dragon. And I sort of sussed this out, but I didn't really understand the dynamics. Anyway, one day the project coordinator was away, and Dragon Lady, as I called her, called me into her office, sat me down and said, "This is the first project that this lady has run. I want you to give me feedback on her performance." Again, thanks to Toastmasters, I was able to constructively give feedback off the cuff that was constructive and hopefully helpful. The ability to give and receive feedback is a huge one as well. Fantastic. Thanks, guys. So now, turning away from what Toastmasters have done for you, I want you to think about what opportunities Toastmasters has given you. I know you are club officers. Well done for stepping up into that role. But what other opportunities have you got? What about being a mentor, being a club coach, a club mentor, a club sponsor, a speechcraft coordinator, youth leadership coordinator, area director? One of the things I really believe with Toastmasters is that you don't run out of challenges. There is always another challenge that's around the corner that you can step up and take. How is Pathways moving you out of your comfort zone? How is it challenging you to take on new things and adapt things in the real world? I truly believe that Pathways can develop our potentials. Who knows? Being called awesome or a pay rise might be in your future too. So before I wrap it up, what I'd like you all to do is I'd like you to type into chat something that you'll take away from this speech. What is it that you're going to do or think about differently? Pop it into chat for me. Thank you, Larry. Great, Patricia. Great, Phyllis. Okay. Andy, I'm sure somebody will help you with that. I will be saving chat, guys, and having a read through these, so thank you for that. Asking for more money. Good on you, Sam. Hope you get it. Alice, you're like me. Okay, Thomas, check with your PQD. I'll be really making the resources that I have available to the district. So they'll be available for people to get hold of, not a problem. Not afraid of no's in negotiations. That's the big one. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your comments and thank you for your participation. And now I'm opening the floor to you. Does anybody have any questions? Tammy, do we have any questions that you've picked up on your way through?
I have not seen any questions in the chat so far. Oops. That was my time warning. Yeah, I've not seen any questions in the chat so far. So if you have questions, please pop them in the chat. But while we're doing that, I do want to thank you, Julie. This has been very helpful and very encouraging. I have a question for you while we're waiting for other people to put questions in the chat. The path that you have, you talked about innovative planning being the one that was almost assigned to you first, and you're glad you took it. And now that you've been on all 11 paths, do you find that there's any that's more challenging or more helpful? Was it just that innovative planning original one, or?
it's funny because I think there hasn't been a path where I haven't been challenged in. One of the things I mentioned that there was one project that I put on the back burner for 6 months, and that was the visionary communication one, where you had to present the vision and then present the plan to achieve that vision. I could not separate the two in my speech. Every time I wrote my speech, the first paragraph was the vision, the rest was the plan. And I couldn't speak for 7 minutes about the vision. One of the things I find that I have a problem doing is I find I have a problem coming up with a speech if I can't visualize the audience and can't visualize why that speech could be relevant to people. So eventually, after about 6 months of this project being on the back burner and me mulling around with it, I decided to do it as a game show. And I don't know if you have Shark Tank over there in the States, but here Shark Tank sort of pitches an idea and then they sort of ask for money. So I decided to do this project as a 3-part game show. The first thing was you had to present the vision. The second speech you had to do was the plan. And the third speech you had to ask for money. And by able to actually breaking it down into that sort of structure and having the audience pretend that they were judging me on the vision and then on the plan really helped me achieve that one. So that was a really memorable one for me, and took me a lot further than I would have gone before. Other than that, I don't think there was any easy paths. I think there were always challenges and learnings in the paths, and every single path is memorable to me in a different way.
Yeah, I think if it's an easy path, it means you're not doing it right. You're not getting it. We do have one thing that came in. What do you say to promote Toastmasters in under 30 seconds?
It works. I will now stand up in front of a group of people and I will talk. On Friday, I delivered a session on presentation skills. And I had people who came in the mornings. One of them had said 27 times in his 3-minute presentation at the start of the day. By the end of the day, he only said it 3 times. The techniques, now that's just in one day, and it's not Toastmasters, but what it did, it gave me the ability to look at what people are doing, provide feedback and effective method, give people the skills and the information that can take them very fast to a point. Now, I did recommend that he joins Toastmasters because he needs to keep practicing. But those skills and abilities and the ability to communicate those has only come from my experience with Toastmasters. I wouldn't have had the knowledge. So I always start out, when people say to me, what's Toastmasters? I always start out, it's a public speaking and communication skills in organization, which gives you opportunities to lead and to grow in those skills, and Toastmasters works.
Right. Well, just another question come through. Some people are hesitant to embrace pathways. Your speech sold how you can use the projects to enhance your professional life, but what is your shortened version for the same purpose? What is your elevator pitch?
Depends a bit on who I'm talking to, but again, it comes down to, I believe that Pathways is designed for the real world. Presenting business cases, leading teams, dealing with conflict, they are all things that we encounter every single day in our working environments. I believe that Pathways equips people for the real world.
And did you see the other one that popped in there? How would you tell an executive leader that they need to reduce their filler words?
Carefully. Particularly if that's only my pay packet. Yeah, I've just done a there. How's that for bad? I think I would say, and this is what I say to people, not only people with filler words, but the finger ones. What that does is betrays your nervousness and decreases your authority. If you can speak without filler words, if you can speak without the little twitches and the little mannerisms that make people think you're nervous and you don't have confidence, then it undermines your authority. So I would have worked on that approach and that level.
That's a great response, because that's something that comes up a lot, especially when no one would ask for the feedback. That's the challenge. That was a great response. Thank you. So I didn't see any other questions come through. And I had one that popped out of my head as we were talking, so I wanted to be listening, not thinking. Don't remember what it was. Any other questions for Julie while we've got her? Because it's already tomorrow where she is.
Just about.
Oh, just about.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Julie, instead of me typing, what is your goal once you finish all of the pathways? What's your next goal within Toastmasters?
That's a really good question, Karen, because I'm actually asking myself that as well. I want to have a look at the new level 1, and therefore I'll probably rebuy a path to give me that opportunity just to see how they've structured it. My understanding is that the level 1 has been changed quite dramatically and may suit more people, but I'm not really sure what path to rebuy, and that's where I'm sitting at the moment. I really believe the next thing I have to do better is storytelling. And I'm really hoping that they'll bring out that long-awaited storytelling path. But meanwhile, what I'm going to do is go back through all 11 projects and do the Storytelling Elective, because it's the only elective I've not done. So that's going to be, I think, the biggest challenge for me is that Storytelling Elective. And Dawn keeps telling me that they've got a storytelling club. I wonder if it's actually online.
Julie?
Yes, it is.
Yes, please, Ron.
I'd like to point out that rightfully aimed mostly at professional career workers and using Toastmasters to benefit them. I've been retired for quite a few years, and I'd like to also point out that volunteers like me who teach reading to first graders can use the storytelling hints. So it's not, Toastmasters doesn't benefit just workers, professionals. It benefits volunteers who help others.
And I think you're very right there, Ron. It is for the real world. Whatever your real world is, you're always going to come across conflict. You're always going to come across areas where you can use those skills. Evaluation of feedback is something that every single person can use. And storytelling is definitely one of those. As I said, it's not my strength, but I think you're right. I think you can incorporate pretty much everything in pathways for any environment. Thank you for pointing that out. There was a question also in chat that I noticed, and that was about where would you mind for new members? I believe that, just as Ron has said there, or Ran has said there, that Toastmasters works for everyone. However, from my experience, one of the biggest areas of need is with our new graduates. Our graduates here in Australia come out of university with a degree and very few skills, particularly if they're engineers or accountants or anybody else in the STEM area. So I believe that working with organisations and their graduate programs is an area where Toastmasters really needs to look at. The other area, and this is where I started my club, was in an area of immigrants, new Australians. We have a huge population from the Asian, Indian, Arabic countries, and English is something that they struggle with. Many of them are highly educated, but can't get jobs here because they don't have the language skills. So when I was looking to start my club, I looked for an area that was populated by new Australians. And that was the focus or the motivation behind starting the club. So if you have those demographics in your area, I would be approaching them, because they are the ones who need the language skills, the self-confidence, and the social skills. One of the other clubs that I'm currently coaching is a club for MBA, was set up as a club for MBA students, given that we don't have any foreign students at the moment. We don't have many in there. But that club has a very short meeting, and then they all go to the pub afterwards, because what the people who come to that club are looking for social skills and social communication skills, as well as formal presentation skills. So I think it's an opportunity to look around at who are your neighbours, who are the people that you're interacting with, what are their needs, and how can your club maybe change and adopt to support those needs. That would be where I'd be looking for new members.
Along with that, there was another question that ties kind of into that. The question was, what groups are most open to Toastmasters now and prepping for the future, like Boy Scouts and everything? Are there any other groups that you can think of, like maybe formal organizations, that are also good for mining because of that?
I've got two ideas on that one. The first one is, unfortunately, Toastmasters international rules don't allow us to do this. And that for me is high school students in their last 2 years of high school. My daughter graduated this year, and I know that her and her cohort would have seriously benefited from Toastmasters in the last 2 years. They have to give presentations at school, and most of them are terrified. Having a Toastmasters aimed at that age group. Now, I know there are Gavel clubs, but most of our Gavel clubs here are for younger children. That 16, 17-year-old band, I believe, is a market that Toastmasters really should be investigating. The second one comes out of the opportunity from the TEDx coaching that I did. I was at the TEDx session this morning, and a man came up to me and introduced himself as the coordinator for the Data Analytics Future Program at the university. And when I actually got an explanation of what that meant, was he was working with STEM students to help them find jobs in the real world. And he identified that they didn't have the soft skills. And he wanted to talk more about looking at how Toastmasters can assist in that area. So I'm going to go back to him and have a look and see if we can start up a Toastmasters club at the university for the STEM graduates. So I really think that that's a great avenue that we really need to explore. More partnering with universities, more partnering, hopefully at some point in the future, with high schools.
And then one last thing before we run out of time here. There's a question about, have you coordinated a youth leadership program, and can it be effectively, or can you effectively use it in an online setting?
I haven't coordinated a youth leadership program. In fact, nobody in my district has done one, as far as I can tell, forever. So I have read the materials, and it is something I'm toying with. Whether or not it can be used effectively in online, I think these days we have to be able to do these things effectively online. In District 17 in Western Australia, we have had no cases of COVID. So our world is back to normal, but the global world has changed, and no longer will people who are applying for jobs be flown across the country for job interviews. Job interviews are going to be done on Zoom or similar programs. So I believe that if we want to effectively equip our young people for the future, we need to give them these online skills as well as in-person skills. So I think it could be adapted effectively. I haven't looked at it in depth, but I really believe that we have to be able to do that.
And I think we're about at the time limit here. I know people are still starting to put comments and everything in here, but I have not seen another question pop in. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. Thank you so much for joining us today, Julie. I've been seeing a lot of comments in here of people telling you you're awesome again. So maybe you can take that chat that you save and you can frame that. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you everyone for joining us and asking the questions and participating. And Julie, thank you, and you have a great evening.
Thank you all. Enjoy your club officer training. My motto for club officer training is where we learn and are inspired. So I challenge you all to be inspired. Thank you for the opportunity. Have a great day, all of you.
Thank you, Julie.
Right, so the break rooms, thank you, Julie. And the break rooms for your session should already be open. So if you would like to go ahead and move into your break room, please do so. If you need assistance, please use the chat to let us know that you need assistance. Annetta, which session are you trying to go to?
I'm trying to remember what I signed up for, Karen. Thank you.
Hi, Karen. Happy Saturday. I can't get into the Free Toast Host 101 session.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Marquetta, and happy
You're
Saturday
welcome.
to you as well.
Hi, Rosetta Keaton. I need assistance in getting to the VPE session.
Rosetta, this is Annetta. Good to see you today, ma'am.
Good to see you also. Thanks again for your wonderful presentation.
Oh, I was in the room with Masters. It was an honor. Thank you.
Okay, so who else needs help? Is someone helping
I
Rosetta?
do.
I do.
I have
I
no
do.
idea how to get to it. Can you choose it? Yeah, I mean, that's a question. Sure.
Yeah, you
No,
can
no.
choose it.
If you go to the bottom
Andy,
screen,
Where do we go to get there?
yeah, if
okay,
you go to the bottom
Andy,
screen, you should see either breakouts or you might see 3 dots that says more. And under that, you'll see breakout rooms. And it should bring up a window on your screen and you can select to join the
So,
session.
On the screen that you're sharing, we should see that, or somewhere else?
On your own Zoom screen at the bottom where you've got the mute and stop video on that bar on the
Yeah.
far right, you should either see breakout rooms or maybe 3 dots that says more.
I do see breakout rooms. Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I need to get to free Toastmasters 101, the breakout.
I moved you.
hey,
Karen.
Pat. Okay, Pat, yeah, there's a delay between when we assign you and when you go.
Yeah.
Pat, Tara, where do you need to go?
Lisa Coyle, could you please wait? Lisa, can you hear me? Karen, can you see Lisa?
Lisa, no, it
Coyle.
looks like. No, Lisa looks like she's already moved.
Okay.
So Pat, Terrell, or Tyrell, where do you?
VPE.
VP of E?
Yeah, I just Pat.
Got it.
Got it. Okay.
Got it.
Joyce, you want to go to secretary, correct? You are muted.
I see a lot.
Go ahead.
I moved you, Joyce, for secretary.
This is Larry Kimbrough, and I
Uh,
don't know where I'm supposed to go.
What office do you have?
I currently have president, but I don't know if I was saving that for later.
We don't have president right now, so our electives are free toast toast and contest faux pas.
Free toast toast. Okay, I'll take that for 100.
Okay.
How do I get there though? I don't have a, I go on the
I-
3 dots.
I assigned you, so you should be moved shortly.
Oh, okay. Because I didn't have a breakout room selection.
Well, your name says iPad 2. Is that you also?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
on both. Okay,
So I want to go to free toast toast.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, on iPad too. Okay, I'm going to close out at the other one.
Karen, have I been
Yes.
assigned?
No, you have not. Where do you need to go, Linda?
I wanted to go to the contest faux pas and then at 11 o'clock to the president.
Or we'll do one at a time.
Okay.
Yeah,
Contest.
Karen, I am going to stop recording. This is from the previous session recording.
Yes, thank you.